The Saturday morning air in Willowbrook Estates, a suburban enclave that prided itself on tree-lined streets and well-maintained lawns, was thick with the scent of brewing coffee and impending chaos. I was 3 weeks into my peaceful new life, an illusion that was about to be spectacularly shattered by Karen, our homeowners association president, a woman whose syrupy sweet tone barely masked a will of iron and an obsession with community cooperation that bordered on the pathological. My first encounter with Karen, just days after moving in, had been a masterclass in condescension. Clipboard in hand, a smile that never quite reached her eyes, she delivered a 20-minute lecture on grass height, approved mailbox colors, and the vital importance of sharing spaces for neighborhood events. Her meaningful glance at my spacious driveway and 3-car garage hadn't registered then as a threat, merely as a quirk of an overzealous HOA president. I'd filed her comments under weird but harmless, a critical misjudgment. Over the next 2 weeks, Karen's scrutiny intensified. Her tiny, yapping Pomeranian became a frequent and unwelcome visitor as she conducted multiple daily inspections of my property, always pausing to scrutinize, to photograph, to judge. Then came the Saturday morning that would forever be etched in Willowbrook Estates lore. From my kitchen window, I watched, initially with detached amusement, as Karen and several other women began setting up party decorations in her front yard, balloons, streamers, a large banner proclaiming Willowbrook Women's Wine Club 5th anniversary. Fair enough, I thought. Not my circus, not my monkeys. But around 11 a.m., the circus decided to relocate. I watched, stunned, as Karen began actively directing people towards my driveway, pointing at my garage with sweeping, proprietary gestures. 2 men materialized, unloading folding tables from a van and setting them up directly in front of my 3-car garage door. The realization hit me like a rogue sprinkler head. Karen wasn't just making idle comments about community cooperation. She was commandeering my property for her wine club's anniversary bash. A surge of indignant anger welled up. My first instinct was to march out there and shut it down, to assert my property rights with righteous fury. But then a more delicious, more strategically sound idea began to form, sparked by the memory of the security cameras I'd installed just the week before, a silent, unblinking network covering every inch of my exterior. If Karen wanted to play games, I'd give her a game she wouldn't soon forget, a game where every move was documented, every transgression recorded. Quietly, I made my way to the garage's internal control panel. With a satisfying click, I switched off the exterior keypad. A quick check confirmed all doors were locked from the inside. Then I settled into my upstairs office window, a front row seat to the impending spectacle, a cup of coffee in hand. This was going to be better than any reality TV show. By 2 p.m., the party was in full swing. About 30 women, a kaleidoscope of sundresses and designer sunglasses, clustered around the tables in my driveway, sipping wine, their laughter echoing through the afternoon air. Karen, a picture of regal self-importance, held court in the center, regaling her guests with what I could only assume were tales of her HOA conquests, her gestures grand, her voice carrying. Everything, it seemed, was proceeding according to her meticulously laid, albeit entirely unauthorized plan. Until someone tried to enter my garage, I watched, a smirk playing on my lips, as one of the women, perhaps seeking more wine or a clandestine retreat from the chattering, approached the keypad. She punched in numbers. The keypad beeped obligingly, but the massive garage door remained stubbornly, gloriously shut. She tried again. Nothing. She called Karen over. Karen, with the confident swagger of someone accustomed to bending reality to her will, laughed dismissively, waved her guest aside, and stepped up to the keypad herself. She entered a code with the practiced ease of someone who had undoubtedly used it before, a chilling thought I filed away for later. The door didn't budge. Karen's body language, previously a symphony of confident command, shifted into a discordant clatter of confusion. She jabbed at the buttons again, harder this time, her perfectly manicured nails clicking angrily against the plastic. Still nothing. A small, curious crowd began to gather around her, their wine glasses forgotten. Murmurs rippled through the group. "Maybe the power's out," one suggested. "Is the door broken?" another wondered aloud, her voice laced with concern. That's when Karen's confusion, like a volatile chemical reaction, morphed into incandescent rage. She began pounding on the garage door with her fists, her expensive bracelets clattering, her voice, muffled but clearly furious, shouting something I couldn't quite make out. Then she marched around to my front door, a woman possessed, and began ringing the doorbell with a frantic, insistent rhythm. When I, ensconced in my observation post, didn't answer, she escalated to hammering on the door, not polite knocking, but the aggressive, demanding pounding of someone who believed they had an inalienable right to entry. "I know you're in there," she shrieked, her voice now carrying clearly across the entire neighborhood, a shrill siren of entitlement. "Open this door immediately. Your garage door is malfunctioning, and we need access to the supplies inside. This is official HOA business." I remained silent, a ghost in my own house, watching from my upstairs window as Karen's face grew redder by the second, her composure unraveling like a cheap sweater. She whipped out her phone, her fingers flying across the screen, undoubtedly summoning her HOA lieutenants. Within minutes, 2 other board members arrived, their expressions a mixture of concern and trepidation. Karen, now in full victim mode, pointed dramatically at my house, her voice a torrent of accusations about deliberate sabotage and violation of community standards. After letting her work herself into a truly magnificent, self-incriminating frenzy, I decided it was time for my entrance. I calmly walked out my front door, a few carefully selected documents in hand, making sure every security camera captured my serene demeanor. The entire party, a tableau of arrested motion and frozen wine glasses, turned to stare. "Good afternoon, everyone," I said, my voice infused with the pleasant, unruffled tone of my best customer service days. "Is there something I can help you with?" Karen's face contorted with a rage so pure it was almost beautiful. She stormed towards me, a human tempest in designer sandals. "You know exactly what you did," she hissed through clenched teeth, her voice a venomous whisper. "You deliberately locked us out of the garage. We have important party supplies in there, and you're ruining my event." I tilted my head, feigning innocent confusion. "I'm sorry, Karen, but why would your party supplies be in my garage?" She sputtered, momentarily lost for words, before rallying. "The previous owners always allowed us to use this space for community events. It's tradition. You're new here, so maybe you don't understand how things work, but this garage has always been available for HOA functions." This was my cue. I produced the first document, my property deed. I held it up, ensuring the prominent private property declaration was visible. According to this legally binding document, the garage, and indeed this entire driveway, is part of my private property. I've reviewed it carefully, and I don't see any easements or agreements allowing public access or HOA use. The crowd began to murmur, a ripple of unease spreading through the wine-sipping ranks. I noticed several women subtly stepping away from the tables, their festive mood rapidly deflating. Karen's voice rose to a shrill, desperate pitch. "The HOA has implicit rights to use available spaces for community benefit. It's in the spirit of neighborhood cooperation." I then produced my second document, a pristine copy of the Willowbrook Estate's HOA Bylaws, the very rulebook Karen so often wielded like a weapon. Actually, Karen, I've read through these bylaws quite carefully myself, particularly after our initial meeting. Section 12, paragraph 4, specifically states that all HOA events must be held on common property or with the written consent of private property owners. I don't recall giving any written consent for my garage or driveway to be used for your wine club anniversary. Do you, by any chance, have such a document? Karen's face had now transcended crimson and was entering a fascinating shade of puce I didn't know human skin could achieve. She stammered about verbal agreements and community traditions, but the damage was done. Her guests, sensing the shifting tides of power and the undeniable weight of legal documentation, were already beginning to pack up, shooting embarrassed, apologetic glances between Karen and me. Several mumbled quiet apologies as they folded their chairs and made a hasty retreat, desperately trying to salvage the situation, or perhaps her rapidly imploding authority. Karen changed tactics, her voice now dripping with a forced, saccharine sweetness that made my teeth ache. Miles, this is all just a big misunderstanding. I simply assumed you knew about our long-standing arrangement with the previous owners. Of course, we should have asked first. Perhaps we could work something out for future events. I smiled politely, a mirror of her own insincere pleasantries. I appreciate the clarification, Karen. And just so we're absolutely clear going forward, though, I should probably mention that my comprehensive home security system has recorded this entire misunderstanding. Multiple cameras, crystal clear audio and video, showing the unauthorized use of my private property, the repeated attempts to gain entry into my locked garage, and what could, by some legal interpretations, be construed as harassment when you were, rather emphatically, pounding on my front door. The remaining color drained from Karen's face as the full implications of her actions, now immortalized on video, hit her with the force of a rogue champagne cork. One of the other HOA board members, a dignified older woman named Patricia, who had looked increasingly uncomfortable throughout the entire debacle, stepped forward, her voice firm. "Karen," she said, "I think it's time we relocated this gathering. We will definitely need to discuss this entire matter at the next board meeting." Karen, however, wasn't quite ready to surrender her perceived territorial rights. She tried one last, desperate play, her voice now a childish whine. But the supplies, the really good wine, the artisanal cheeses, they're all in his garage. The previous owners gave me the code months ago, so I could set up early for events. I raised an eyebrow, my expression one of mild, academic interest. "So, Karen, you're admitting to entering my private property, using a security code provided to the previous owners, without my permission, on previous occasions? That's interesting. I'll make sure to save that particular segment of security footage as well." The exodus accelerated. Within 10 minutes, my driveway was clear, the remnants of Karen's ill-fated wine party. A few stray napkins, a deflated balloon, the only evidence of the invasion. Karen herself stood amidst the debris, a solitary, defeated figure, her shoulders slumped, her designer sunglasses askew. She gathered the remaining decorations with shaking hands, muttering under her breath about ungrateful newcomers and a complete lack of community spirit.